Welcome everyone to another edition of the Profitable Christian Business Podcast. I am so pleased to have my guest Greg Schweitzer with me today. Greg is a previous uh, guest on the podcast, but that was when it was the entrepreneur journey. So he is making a return visit because we're not only going to dive deep into his business and his expertise, but we're going to talk even more so about his faith, which is I'm going to love to have this conversation. So how are you today, Greg?
I am doing great, man. The sun is shining. It's Friday. Things are good. We get to have this kind of a conversation that's not only fun and interesting, but important and meaningful. So it's a good day.
Yes, yes. I hope everybody's ready for this conversation,
Yeah.
because one of the things since the transition of the podcast from what it was to what it is now, I've invited some of the guests that have been on before because we've only been able to skirt around their faith, if you will, and I found that these conversations are so valuable to the Christian entrepreneurs that are listening because we all have not just a business journey, but a faith journey, right? And it all is intertwined together. So I can't wait to dive into that. But let's keep it light and fun from the beginning, right? So,
All right, let's do
so,
it.
so let's first of all introduce yourself. For those that haven't watched the previous episode, tell a little bit about yourself.
Awesome. Geez, man, where do you want me to start? When I was 5 years old, no, I'm just kidding. Just kidding. No, my name is Greg Schweitzer, and I do run a business. It's called the Catalyst Transformation Institute. I chose that name Catalyst because one of the fun parts about doing the work that I do as a coach and trainer and practitioner is I kind of help people unleash the greatness that God has placed inside of them. Okay, we have a number of things, life, all that kind of stuff, of being part of a fallen world and a fallen time where there's a lot vying for our attention and trying to distract us and junk us up, right? But God placed some really cool stuff inside of us, and so sometimes we have to peel back the layers and we have to peel back the junk. And we have to try to see how we can access that, which gives us the life that he promised us. And so, as a catalyst, my job is I don't make the change happen in a person, but I am a guide or a catalyst to kind of help create the reaction that creates that freedom and then that open life, right? That big life that God has for us, sort of thing. So, I also believe that people are catalysts in their own right, and what I mean by that is, if you look at a catalyst, is anyone or anything that creates and accelerates result without becoming burned out in the process. Catalysts, when they create chemical reactions, they don't burn up. They just make everything hotter and faster and better and all that kind of thing, right? And so people have that capacity inside of themselves. And so my job is to kind of help unleash that. And I do it in various different ways. I do it sometimes through strategy and business and marketing and sales and those all of the technical parts of business. And oftentimes I do it on a personal development level, right? And those two pieces really need to be operating optimally in order for us to win. I mean, I need to have my professional life working well in order for my personal life to be funded and go well. But at the same time, I need to be good personally in order for me to be as good as I need to be professionally. And so I love being able to work with that dynamic so people can live more of the one life, a one life scenario. Same is true with our faith, in my opinion. I have my professional life, my business as a Christian, right? But then I also have that faith piece, and that piece. We need to find ways to make that fit in with what we're doing professionally. And in my field, we'll get more into this a little later on. But in my field, there can be a lot of things that can kind of get in the way of that, even though we're trying to do good things. So, um, I'm a 24-year veteran of marriage. Got 4 kids and a grandbaby on the way coming in June. So, which is kind of weird because I still feel like I'm 19, but it's really pretty cool. We're excited about that. So that's me.
Yeah, you and I are on the same page there. I feel like I'm 19, 20 years old all the time too, but that
I act like it
you gotta have that youthful spirit. I think there's a way to have a youthful spirit but still be mature, right?
for sure.
And I think
Childlike,
that's
not
what.
childish.
Yes, that's right. Exactly. Yes. And we could go down a rabbit hole about faith, being childlike in our faith in a whole nother aspect. But
For sure.
um, I have a question real quick before I even get into the other questions that I have prepared.
All right.
The name Catalyst, did it take you a long time to come up with it? Was it just a spark inside your head? How did that happen?
Initially, when I was getting started, there was this. It was more of like an inner sensing that what do I want this to be? If I'm going to be going and helping people this way, whether it's in their personal life or their professional life or their spiritual life, for that matter, because I do some coaching and spiritual direction with people as well. Um, like, what does that need to look like? And there's a piece of humility around this piece because we all know that. when transformation happens, God is the source, right?
Hmm.
Although I may be the coach and the practitioner that helps, and that person may be the individual that's doing the work, if you will. God's the one who made that thing allowed. And I wanted to create a scenario where I could retain my own humility, but also honor the greatness that God has placed in every individual, right? I don't fix people. Therapists don't fix people for that matter, right? We just help unleash that goodness that's already inside of there. And so I needed that to be representative. And it was really important for me that whatever I was putting out to the world in terms of who I was as a business needed to articulate that. In my space, coaching, being influencers, all that kind of stuff, whatever, there can be a lot of arrogance
Mm.
and a lot of posing. And that's not to say anything bad about individuals, but it just the nature of the business is like, because you lead people or because you help people, you gotta be, you gotta have all your stuff together and you gotta be on top of your game and you can't have errors and you can't have hardship and struggle in your life, which is all baloney. But
Mm.
I needed that to be more real for people, to be able to see that and allow themselves, the space to know that they're the one that has the goodness and gold inside of themselves. Um, and that doesn't dilute my skill set. It just simply means it places it in the right place. So when we can put things in the right places, when we have proper order, then we're good. We're healthy. Life is good, right?
That's right. That's right. Wow. Such. Just ask you about the name of your business, and we've already gotten pretty deep. I love it. I love it. It is a perfect name. I just really thought that. So let's
Thank
get
you, man. I
into
appreciate that.
it. Let's get into those fun questions. So they may not. We may no, go deep on these. It often happens. But if you could wake up with one new skill that you don't currently have tomorrow, what skill would that be?
I thought of two. I think of two of them right off the bat. One of them is to be a speed reader. Like,
Mm.
I'm so fascinated by so many different things. In my line of work, I'm super fascinated by the human person and how we function. But there's other things that I just think are interesting, fascinating, and I love peeling them apart and kind of going, "Ooh, how does that work?" sort of thing. So if I was a speed reader, man, and I could do like a book a day, that'd be awesome, right? Um, I haven't put myself to the task of becoming a speed reader, but poof, if I could do it, there you go. The other one, this is going to sound kind of funny, but if I could instantly be a grandmaster or black belt
Mm.
in the martial art or something like that, I think that would be cool. I have studied the martial arts in the past, right? I practiced that kind of thing. And there's a dynamic that's both physiological, but also intellectual and
Mm.
mental, strategic kind of thing with that. And combining those two pieces together is, I think there's something fulfilling about that or interesting about that. And I just think it'd be kind of cool to understand and to have a level of not only understanding, but mastery in the physicality of it. It'd be cool.
Yeah. So I have comments about both of those things. So I had
Okay.
somebody on the podcast that was a speed reader a while back, and we were talking about that. And I think one of the most important things is it's great to be able to read fast, but you also have to retain it too. So
Yes.
sometimes
Yes,
even
yes,
he
yes.
said you have to, even if you're fast at reading, you still might have to slow down a little bit just so that you retain what you're reading. So
Sure. Now, what's interesting is there's a guy named Paul Sheely out there, and he was kind of one of the big guys in the speed reading arena, and he actually has a background in neurolinguistics, NLP, and those
mm,
kind of things that I've studied. And he set his process up such that when you access the subconscious mind, believe it or not, it actually learns better when
mm,
it's going super fast. So
mm,
you have to be able to do it in such a way that you're not just blasting through the words, but you've kind of opened. I don't want that to sound weird or anything like that, but basically you've allowed access to your subconscious mind, which is where you store all your memories, right? And all of your information, that kind of stuff. But you can do that in a way where we call it one-time learnings, where you actually learn something just by passing through it one particular time, right? So
yeah.
fascinating thing. But yes, why read if you're not comprehending it?
And for the Christian entrepreneurs out there, just think about what a skill that would be for reading the Bible, right?
What?
The people that well, like it's quite an endeavor to read the Bible in a year for most individuals. But if you learn to speed read, what if you could speed read it in 3 months, in 6 months, right?
Sure, sure. And how many people have actually gone through the Bible beginning to end? And how many people have actually done it more than one time? I mean,
Mhm.
there's one of the top podcasts out there by Father Mike Schmitz is the Bible in a Year podcast.
Hmm.
And what's interesting about it is I didn't even think about this until it came out, but he literally spends 20 minutes and he reads through the Bible and then makes just a few comments and that kind of thing. And the next day it's 20 minutes. So in one year, goes through the entire Bible, but it's only taking him 20 minutes a day. And I thought,
Hmm.
here I was having this mindset that like, oh my God, it's going to take me forever, right? It's going to take me 10 years to read the Bible kind of a thing, whatever. And so now if you're slowing down to do particular studies on certain topics and words, like that's a different story. But to actually have read through the entire thing may not be as big of a challenge than we sometimes think.
Yeah, I actually accomplished it. I don't remember the exact year, but it was probably within the last 10 years that I did that. But after that, I was like, now it just felt like a badge, right? It didn't feel like I didn't go deep, right? So
Yes.
it's a
Yeah.
great thing to do, but at the same time, you still want to go deep.
Sure.
So,
I think it has some value in two things. Number one is maybe some seed planting. Like
hmm
you've gone through the whole of the history of salvation and you're like, okay, now I've got some foundation here that any other study I do is going to have a different interpretation and perspective to it. So I think that's one piece that's really valuable to going through the whole of the thing, right? Plus, it can just make an awareness of things you didn't really think before. I was
hmm
having a conversation with a gentleman this morning, and we got talking about something, and he said something to me that I never thought about before. He said, "Did you realize that it's only this portion of the New Testament? I think it's like Romans to Philemon that was written to the Gentiles, which is all of us.
hmm
All the rest of the scriptures was written to the Jews."
hmm
And I just thought about that. I was like, "Whoa, wait a minute." A, it's easy to identify as a Jew when you're reading, a book to the Jews sort of thing, but we're not, right?
hmm
And secondly, what might be a different perspective for me to have in those sections of the New Testament by paying attention to the fact like that this was written for people who are not Jewish people, who are not the original people or people of God sort of a thing, and this is what you need to know, right, to be adopted. I was like, whoa. So anyway, fascinated
Yeah, like an intense focus just on those books would be really really good.
for
Now,
sure.
you mentioned martial arts. Um,
Yeah.
this always pops into my head, whether it's like the military, anything that requires a deep level of discipline, um, is great for entrepreneurs, right?
Okay. 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 That's really good. So this this is a passionate topic of mine, especially over the last 9 months or something, probably a year now. Just this idea around habits, right? And discipline kind of a thing. So discipline, a lot of times people will poo-poo or reject discipline. We all do it in various different ways, right? Or we think it's painful and bad, and it is difficult. It can be challenging. I think if people would get a hold of an understanding that I need to be disciplined for a time until that particular practice becomes habitual, because when it becomes habitual, I'm turning it over to my subconscious brain. I don't have to think about it. Like when you get up in the morning and you go to get dressed, which leg did you put in your pants first? Your left or your right? Most people don't even know because they've been doing it for so long and it's subconscious and I don't think about it, right? But it's always the same leg.
hmm
So, what is it that you can do for a time on purpose with conscious effort, such that eventually, through repetition, which is the mother of all skill, right? It becomes habitual, and we don't have to think so hard at this. Life doesn't be so hard at being whatever we want to be:
hmm
successful as an entrepreneur, better in sales, a better father, a stronger Christian, whatever the thing is. Does that make sense?
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
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 Uh,
I just felt that to be a total rescue for me, to realize that I didn't have to be white knuckling, bearing down in my life all of the time to be enough for my business or my wife or my whatever, right? My faith and those kinds of things. But I do need to do it from time to time to get myself to the next level.
yeah, yeah.
The next level of normal, right? We call the new normal, if you will.
Yeah, because you have those repetitious skills and habits, like you mentioned, that just propel you forward, and then it's time to build a new set of skills and habits, and you don't have to worry that the other ones aren't set.
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Like when you get up and you start your day, it's like nobody has to remind if you have a habit of brushing your teeth. Nobody has to remind you brush your teeth. It's just
right.
kind of part of the thing you do in the morning routine, right?
Yep.
And so, what would it be like if some of those things that you knew were important, or some of those things that you knew were going to bring you a different level of life and experience, became something you just did? It's like, I don't know who you are. I don't know. That's just what I do, man. You know
So,
what I mean?
so challenge to anyone listening. Hopefully, this is already a daily practice for you. But one of the most important habits that you can do right now as a Christian entrepreneur is get in the Word, right?
Mm.
50 Bible in a year, 15, 20 minutes a day. Boom, you're through the Bible, and then you have a habit that's going to serve you for the rest of your life.
That's right.
Um,
That's right.
so,
That's right.
um, awesome, awesome. So that was just the first question or a second
All
question.
right.
So the next question is one. Now we're gonna have to exclude the Bible from this because that's the default answer. Well, it's one book or movie that has a profound impact on you.
Yeah, wow. Okay. So there was a book that was so I read a lot. Okay. That's, I have kind of a sickness, I think. No, I'm just kidding. I'm being a little joking. I own like 800 books, man.
Wow.
I haven't read all of them yet, but here's what's interesting about this is that there are some books that I think are game changers and they're core books to my life
Mhm.
on an ongoing basis. But there was one book that I read, I want to say 2010, something like that, 2012, maybe something like that, that was pivotal for me, that opened up some perspective and got me down a path of certain learnings and certain. Okay. So it's a book called The Rhythm of Life. That's by a gentleman named Matthew Kelly. But what's cool about this is this gentleman, Matthew Kelly, he owns a coaching and consulting company at a high level. It's called Floyd Consulting. And so they're working with the big dogs out there, Coke and Pepsi, and some of those bigger companies. Okay. They do executive coaching and consultation like as a but also he's a very strong Christian man of faith. And so this perspective it doesn't directly address Christianity and faith, and it doesn't really address business, but it was more of a life philosophy of life that there is a rhythm to living, right? We have to have periods of activity and we have to have periods of rest, right? We have to have periods of learning and periods of teaching, that kind of thing. And so kind of like an oscillation between these things. And it was really interesting to listen to this thing about the rhythm of life. And it was like, it was awe-inspiring in the fact that it was information I hadn't heard, but yet it would ring so true, meaning like, it's like, I felt like I knew it, but I didn't know it yet. And so it was very pivotal for me in that particular perspective on just being able to understand life and then just have a philosophy for how I would approach things. It's pretty, really, very cool.
Nice, nice. Yeah, I think most people, myself for sure, can pinpoint books that were milestones in their journey, whether it's their faith journey or their business journey. Um,
For sure.
I don't, most Christians, well, some Christians, I'm not gonna say most, some Christians may not align with what Tony Robbins teaches, but Unlimited Power back in the day when I read that
Yeah.
book, that was one of
Yeah.
the pivotal books, the Zig Ziglar books,
Yep.
I'm sure a lot of people, Robert Kiyosaki's Think and Grow Rich,
Yep.
uh,
Rich Dad, Poor Dad,
Rich
right?
Dad Poor
Yeah.
Dad, yeah,
Yeah.
Napoleon Hill's Think and Grow Rich. That was
Yeah, that's
another
right.
book for me, but
Yeah.
yeah, those are
So some
several
of those,
books.
I agree with you. Sometimes they're one-time reads and like, oh, that's really pretty cool. Then there's other books that I purposely will return to because I've learned over time that returning to something creates mastery.
Hmm.
Information is not transformational. Experiences. And so you've got to go back to something over and over sometimes. And so
Hmm.
I've read Unlimited Power multiple times, and sometimes I'll get back to it at least once a year, once every other
Hmm.
year, just because. Well, it's also almost 600 pages, so it's like a lot of
Yeah,
stuff, right?
yeah.
But anyway, just to pull the values and to remind myself, right? It's one thing, and this is my opinion. It's one thing to spread out and go. I'm learning all sorts of different types of things, but it's also really interesting to go deep on certain
Hmm.
topics, right? And they're like, whoa, that can be really profound. So anyway.
Yeah. This you cannot use the default answer on this next question either, but
Okay.
if you could spend an entire day with anyone alive or dead, who would it be and what would you do together? You cannot say your wife because that's default answer, of course, or immediate family like your children. So anyone
Okay, got
outside
it.
of your immediate sphere.
Immediately, I know who it is.
Yeah.
John Eldridge.
Hmm.
He's the author of Wild at Heart and many
Mm.
other books. Um, that man is a really, really good writer. He has a history or background in theater, so he's very good at being descriptive and fluent in just being able to be describing experiences and life and the life with God, if you will. He's also a very devout kind of man in
Mhm.
that he has kind of monastic rituals the way that he lives his life. He's also
Mm.
a licensed counselor, and he has some powerful gifting in being able to hear. He has his dialogue like with God. When we think of prayer, we think of like sometimes it's giving these prayer speeches to God. So like, no, he has dialogues with God, and there's a lot of anointing in that piece for him. And so, um, I listened to his podcast. I've read all of his books. I've even gone to their Wild at Heart boot camp sort of thing. And I'm going to tell you that there was some profundity there for me that if I were to spend an entire day with this man, I don't know if there'd be anywhere near enough time. What would we do? Um, he's an avid outdoorist, so whatever we do, it'd be kind of
Mm.
fun to get outside. I'd have him teach me how to fly fish because I've always wanted to fly fish and I've never done it. But we'd also have some deep heart to hearts about life and about being a man and a man in this world in this time um, for God. when we're getting our butts kicked
Mm-hmm.
in a lot of ways, right? And it's very hard thing. But and then one of the things I appreciate about him is he's also not afraid to just shoot straight.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I mean? And so I think that would be magical for me.
Wow. Yeah. Um, Something I was thinking of as you were saying that is that man has an anointing, right?
Mm.
Um, so if you had to, off the top of your head right now, do you feel like you have an anointing? And if you do, what is it?
Yeah, man. I think that you know what? Nobody's really asked me that directly, and so thank you for asking.
Yeah.
Um, and I'm surprised that I feel like I have an immediate answer for it. Probably because I spent some time thinking on this and chewing on it, and that kind of thing. Uh, it circles around. Let me think of the word. Um, Give me a second here. Teaching
Mm-hmm.
slash evangelizing. No, not evangelizing. Teaching slash I don't know, coaching or whatever it is. Like I'm really good at being able to take concepts, even if they're difficult, understand them, boil them down, and be able to deliver them to people. That makes it practical and useful for their life.
Can I give you your word if you'll accept it?
Let's hear it.
Enriching.
Oh, tell me why you thought of that word.
Because it's one of the things that I feel like I'm good at. I don't know if it's my anointing, but being able to like in interactions with others enrich them. Like
Yeah,
and that doesn't
yeah,
mean like making them
yeah,
give them money. It doesn't. It means enriching
yeah.
them with value, right? Giving them
Yes,
value.
that's
Um,
good. I had a phrase that I articulated because some just playing with things like personal mission statements and the like, and I realized that um I want the greatest that life has to offer,
mm,
and I receive it by helping other people experience the greatest that life has to offer. And I feel like that's my life. It's like if I've been to Disneyland and it's fascinating. There's a sign that says you're entering a whole nother world, and it literally is, right? That
mhm,
experience is like that. But I have more joy by taking somebody else to Disneyland and watching them go, wow, and have an
mhm,
enthralling experience than I do doing it myself a lot of the times. Same thing is true with music. I've been privileged enough to be able to do some things musically and write songs and those kind of things, but it was always about taking experiences and understandings and that kind of thing and sharing with people in a way that was going to be useful and interesting to them. So both from the standpoint of being able to have a pleasurable experience of life, right? Life to the fullest, but also things that could be useful and being able to overcome the hard in life, that kind of thing. So I can't help myself,
yeah,
right?
nice,
I
nice.
can't help myself with that. So
Yeah, that's very much along the Zig Ziglar lines, right? Of help someone else get what they want, and you will be fulfilled,
for sure, for
right?
sure, it's
So.
biblical as well.
Yep, exactly, exactly. Yeah, Zig was a very biblical man himself. So,
Yes, he was.
um, the next question, this is a staple of the profitable Christian business. It is the fill in the blank question. So your fill in the blank question is, and I will repeat it if necessary, but your fill in the
Sure.
blank question is, for me, the most important aspect of my faith in navigating the world of entrepreneurship is.
Ooh, ooh. Um, Virtue and ethics.
Oh,
So this is not only applicable to entrepreneurialism, but my particular flavor of entrepreneurialism that I do as a practitioner and a coach is that what I'm delivering, what I'm offering to people has to be true,
mhm,
like truthful, and it has to um, help move people towards better versions of themselves, better versions of life for themselves, for the community, and for the world as a whole. So, in the space of being a practitioner and coaching that kind of thing, there's a lot in this industry that people can get into, and a lot of it's new age.
mhm,
Sometimes people don't realize it, and it can be rather occultish and a thing like that. So,
mhm,
I got where I got all my NLP trainings and hypnosis trainings was really great, and yet some of the people who led that thing also had some we'll call them spiritual practices or psychological practices,
mhm,
things like Reiki and Louise Hayes and those kinds of things,
mhm,
which are not aligned with the Christian faith. And so when you're trying to help people perform, to live better and that kind of thing, there are things that seem to help. Even the world of what we call mindfulness nowadays,
mhm,
right? And it's bled into the world of therapy and psychology. it's a nice idea, but most people don't really understand what really mindfulness is. They just use the word at for face value,
Hmm.
but it really has its origins in Buddhist practices,
Hmm.
right? The Buddhist practice of mindfulness, and a gentleman by the last name of Zen brought this mindfulness stuff over here. It's all it has its basis in that kind of thing. And Buddhism is not aligned with this Christianity. There's some good things about it, but you know what? Even the greatest lie consists mostly of truth.
Mm.
And
Yeah.
so I'm very careful in what I learned about psychology and the human person. And even when I was looking at studying hypnosis, I was like, hey, I need to take a look at this and kind of go, is this legit or is this a creepy, weird practice? So between NLP and hypnosis, completely legitimate. I spent years making sure that something wasn't hiding from me, kind of thing, right? But there's some other pieces in that where they're more, I don't want people to be more committed to a carnal, worldly
Mm.
result in such a way that it damages and or puts in danger their soul.
Yeah. Wow. I I'm going to touch on it because I think I touched on it recently in another podcast. The whole idea of the Joel Osteen thing of your best life now. We should hope that we should have a good we should hope for a good life here, but this should not be our best life. Our best life is on the other side, right?
Yeah,
So
yeah,
kind of like as you said, this carnal desire for these things or status or whatever it is should not destroy our soul.
yeah.
So I
And
love that.
there's nothing wrong with pursuing a good life because God told us in the scriptures, He says, I came that you might have life and
Hmm.
have it abundantly, right? Like
Yep.
you can't imagine a more abundant and amazing life than God can for you. Like you don't have the capacity to be more creative than God when it comes to thinking about creatively about what your life, how amazing your life can be. Okay, so pursue a great life.
Yeah,
Pursue it hard, but don't pursue it apart from your Father in heaven,
that's right.
from apart from your Savior, because whatever it is that you pursue will never be as glorious, will never be as good as what God has intended for you. And the more that we can get ourselves to align with and be in relationship with God, the more we're going to flourish in that kind of a life. And while we're here, we just simply have to be able to accept the fact that we're fallen people. All
Hmm.
have sinned and fallen short. So we're gonna have crap. We're gonna have junk. We're gonna have hard things. It doesn't mean don't pursue the good life anymore. Pursue it, but pursue it on
Hmm.
purpose. Pursue it in the way that everything we do every single day is like I've got to follow the Psalms talk about like your precepts, Lord, are good and right, that kind of
Hmm.
thing. And it's like His precepts, His laws, His way. Yes, they're all good and right, and yet every day we're making choices all day long that's more aligned with His precepts and laws, or they're not. And that's
Hmm.
not a judgment. That's then that is the truth of what life is. And sometimes we do it pretty well, and we experience more, we get a more taste of the divine, that divine life, if you will. And sometimes we do it terribly. Sometimes we do it really, really bad, but it ain't over.
Yeah. Um, if I could piggyback on that a little bit, a way to kind of keep your wheels on the track, so to speak, is back to being in the Word, right? Putting on the armor of God daily. The way that
Mm,
we can continue to walk the path that we're called to walk is to be in the Word, because
okay,
that
okay,
is dive
okay.
on that if you want to. Thanks for tuning into today's episode.
As a Christian entrepreneur, we want to give you something for free. If you go to clientsforthekingdom.com, we have an ideal client avatar generator on there for free. It's something that we've spent thousands of dollars on, countless hours out, and building out this structure of showing you who your ideal client.
Your practice of understanding and being in the Word, having a dynamic relationship with God, right? That kind of thing. Um, it's too easy as a business person to live like you have schizophrenia. Like this is my business and professional life, and this is my other life, which includes my faith sort of thing. How do I how do I operate and live like a Christian? Because here's the deal: if you don't find a way to allow your core values of Christianity to imbue your business life, you will feel divided.
Mhm.
And as long as you are not whole or feel divided, you're not going to experience as much of the fulfilled life, right? The abundant life that God's talking
Yeah.
about. And so, with what you know about the virtue and the practices of being a good person, how do I operate that in my business life?
Hmm.
What do I do? Like just simply in the way you talk to your employees.
Hmm.
Can you get mad at your employees? Heck yes. But how are you going to approach that situation in a way that's going to be the same way that Christ approached us when we were screwing it up,
Hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Does it include compassion and the potential for forgiveness? By the way, it doesn't automatically include forgiveness. There has to be repentance.
Hmm. Hmm.
Okay. Does it include respect for the other person, that kind of thing? Can you still be frustrated? Yeah, Jesus flipped over tables.
Hmm. Yep.
You look at the apostles and they're like, "What? I've been with you for 3 years. You still don't get it?" Right? That kind of thing, right? Okay, so
Hmm.
yeah, that's okay. And yet, what will you do with that?
Hmm.
Right? Sometimes we can get emotionally hijacked. Right? These emotional hijackings can take us over, especially in business because we care about it, and this is my livelihood, and on and on and on. What am I doing to incorporate those practices in my life? I think a good example of this is years ago. There was a great movie out called Facing the Giants. And
Hmm.
if you haven't seen it, it's super cool. It's about a high school coach. He's a football coach, right? Um, and his life, there's a lot of hard stuff going on in his life. It's kind of frustrating and kind of messed up a little bit, sort of thing. But he's trying to be a man of faith, but he's feeling a little lost and so on and so forth. And then he has a heart to heart with God one day and bawls his eyes out and just kind of go, and then he spends the rest of the night, like all night long, reading the word and thinking about what he does. And he showed up the next day and he completely changed his approach to how he was going to be a coach, how he was going to be an employee for that school, and how he was going to work with the teams. And it was a game changer. But he found a way to be able to merge these two things into a one life scenario. Will everything always go well? No, but we'll be able to handle it.
Yeah. So, man, we're gonna keep going on this thread. Two things. First off, I want to talk about what you just said, and then I want to backtrack from that.
Okay.
Taking the time out for God, right? He could have just kept doing the routine, the routine, the routine, the routine, this coach, right? But he decided this was I'm going to take a special allotted time and spend it with God so that God can help me go about the rest of my life the right way. And I think often we get caught in these cycles of just doing the routine every day, and not
Mm-hmm.
say, and even if it's okay, your routine includes that 15-minute Bible study. Sometimes you have to take the break and you have to say, I'm going to spend 2 hours. I'm going to spend however much time God needs with me right now
Yeah.
in order to
Yeah.
set my life right. Um,
Yeah.
so I don't know if you want to expand on that, but I just wanted to bring that point up because I think it's pivotal that people understand that sometimes you got to break the routine just and
Yeah.
spend
Yeah.
time with God.
Okay. This is really good because when we look at ourselves being habitual people and we go, hey, this is the way things are supposed to go. So I'm going to follow these steps. And when those steps stop working or they never were working, or you found out later on that I thought they were working, but they're really messing me up, sort of a thing, we human beings have a really hard time admitting that we're wrong. But if you will allow yourself the gift of being wrong
Mm,
so that you can recalibrate, realign with God, realign with the practices that actually do help, because sometimes our practices either A, never worked, or B, they expire.
mhm,
Like they may have worked for a time, or we thought they worked for a time. We got by for a while and now it just isn't working anymore. And so what I want to hover on here with this piece is that rituals, practices, routines, that kind of thing, super, super, super important. We have to have those in our daily life. Otherwise, we get thrown off track. There are
mhm,
so many things vying for our attention and coming at us at any given time, especially at this time. Our technological world is killing us. Like social media and the news, and like there's a book called The Shallows. And in the book, they talk about that there's so much data flying at the human person at any given time that has the potential to crash a laptop.
mhm,
Excuse me, laptops have mega gigabytes of data and mega gigabytes of speed and all that kind of stuff, and it can crash a laptop. What is it doing to the human brain? The human brain, the human heart were not meant to handle that much stuff. And so we're constantly like trying to defend
mhm,
ourselves, and we're trying to, like Wonder Woman, block stuff off kind of thing. You'll exhaust yourself. So if you don't have your practices that help you align with God, align with yourself, for crying out loud,
mhm,
right? Then it's you're going to get killed. You're going to get taken out. It's just going to suck. And we've all experienced this in some way,
mhm,
shape, or form. That being said, it's important from time to time to evaluate, to inspect what you expect. Are your practices working? This is how I tell my coaching clients. So you're doing that. Is your kung fu working?
yeah,
Right? When you look at kung fu, the only way that people knew that their kung fu worked was they went and picked fights with other schools.
yeah,
Right? It's like, hey, let's get into it for a while, right? Now, generally these were sportsman-like sort of thing, but if you got your your rear end kicked in that fight with the other school. You're like, okay, what do I learn from that? And that's how. Okay, so we talked about martial arts. Interestingly enough, the idea of a black belt came from the fact that when you started, you had a belt that was white, but you had been beat up and bled and thrown in
Mm,
the dirt and the mud so many times that your belt would become darker and darker over time. And so the more experience you got in being able to basically battle and that kind of thing, then the darker your belt became because it became dirtier. That's how a black belt really became. It is about the experience of mastery of getting into the battle and figuring out how to win better. It's the same thing. What are your practices? Like in the martial arts, you got to do your kicks, you got to do your punches, you got to do your katas, those kinds of things, right? But in life as a Christian and as an entrepreneur, what are the practices that you got to do every day that are going to be able to help you stay aligned with your God, not get thrown off by, oh my gosh, we just lost that big client kind of thing, right? It stings, it hurts, but how do I recalibrate? How do I recover? We don't have to believe that we. Sorry, I get fired up about this stuff.
no, no, it's
We
all
don't
good.
have to. We don't have to believe that as Christians, we're supposed to be immune to hardship, to struggle, and to pain. It is coming. It will come. You don't need me to tell that. You're experiencing that. But what happens is you shouldn't feel bad that it's happening to you as if you should somehow be immune.
Right.
Okay. What it is that we're going to take the blows, that they're going to come at us. But where does your hope come from?
Mm,
What is it that you're doing to stay aligned with that hope so that you can deflect more things and or recover and get back on the horse and get back out there because
yeah.
you got a mission as an entrepreneur. You've got a mission to serve people, but as a human being and as a Christian, you got also a mission to be able to live. And so you can't live your mission if you're always constantly getting your butt kicked because you won't do your practices. Ooh,
Yeah.
if that sounds pretty direct and harsh, I'm fighting for you, not fighting against you. People, whoever's listening right now, I'm fighting for you because I've had my butt kicked so many times, and then I go, "Wow, I did that to myself. Wow, I should have paid more attention to that." And then it's caused me to put things into my life. And I go, okay, I don't have to deal with that as much. Or, hey, if that does happen, I have a way out. I have a God who's for me.
Hmm.
And with my practices and my aligning with him, I can get through this and keep going, keep moving forward, right? This is where this is where they talk about finishing the race in
Hmm.
scripture, right? Right? So that when you get to the end, you hear your God saying, well done, my good and faithful
Hmm.
servant. You stuck it out. You did the thing. You kept going. You didn't roll over. You didn't kill your heart and just decide to self-medicate, which we all do to some shape or form. But you didn't only do that. You stayed in the game with me. Thank you. I love you. Come home.
Yep. You didn't let the enemy get you.
That's right. That's right.
Um, wow, so powerful. There's so many references back to the armor of God and having that with you as you go through this journey, right? That I think I've said this before in another podcast is even in the hard times, I have joy, and that's because of my Lord and
Mm,
Savior. Uh,
yeah.
I don't, I'm not comfortable. I might be hurting, but I still have joy. And I think a lot of people misunderstand happiness and joy.
Yeah.
Joy is more of a security to me, and knowing that I win in the end, right? That God's got me on the other side of this. Um,
Mm. That when you asked me about that book, the
mhm.
author of that book, his name is Matthew Kelly, one of my favorite authors. And one of the things that he said around this happiness and joy thing really stuck with me for years. And I'm every day, by the way, I don't have all this stuff figured out. Every day I'm working at this stuff, right? So happiness can only last as long as the activity that's producing the habit is kept up. And as human beings, we don't have the capacity to keep up any activity indefinitely.
Right.
So if your happiness is dependent on what you keep yourself doing, you're going to be unhappy because you can't keep yourself doing anything for forever. Joy is different. Joy is existent regardless of circumstances. And yes, it's hard to get to that place and stay in that place, right? But it's real.
Mhm.
So if it's real, keep marching, soldier. You'll get there.
Yeah,
Even if it means you get to the end of your life and you get to go home, you'll get it.
that's right.
You'll have it.
That's right. Awesome. Awesome. Now, it's been a while since you brought this up, but the whole idea of compartmentalizing. right?
Mm.
We as
Mhm.
men, I wish there was a female in this interview too, so she could interject. But I feel like women, and they
She put us in
probably
our place, probably.
do a much better job of overlaying everything. Where we as
Sure.
men, we tend to, this is my business. This is I'm going to church. I'm compartmentalizing church on Sundays. I'm compartmentalizing my business during the week. Compartmentalizing family during these times. And I think just as overall as men, we need to do a better job of overlaying all of that.
Okay. Oh, this is good. So when you say, from a perspective that males have a tendency to be better at the compartmentalizing sort of thing, that doesn't necessarily mean that's something you should wear as
That's right.
a badge of honor. Okay. Now, is it useful? Yeah. And sometimes it's necessary, right?
Hmm.
Like your your kid is choking, right? You've got to put aside everything that's going on right now so you can save your child's life, sort of thing, right? Sometimes
Hmm.
this stuff is kind of useful. And yet at the same time, we shouldn't wear it as a badge of honor or as an excuse to allow ourselves to disconnect from the other important elements and dimensions of our lives. Okay. This
Yeah.
is why when you see marital problems, that it's sometimes, well, he seems cold and distant. He is, right?
Hmm.
Okay. And it doesn't mean that women can't do this, but I'm just saying that has been a tendency. And so if we start to compartmentalize too much, we're no longer living a one life. We are now living in parts,
Hmm.
right? So if you look at the world of internal family systems, and in NLP, we call it a parts or parts integration. We literally can have parts of us. Like, you ever had those times where you're like, well, part of me wants to do that, but part of me kind of doesn't, right?
Yep.
We've literally internally divided ourselves in some way, shape, or form. Good news is that because of the grace of God, we can reintegrate those sort of things, but sometimes we can spend months or years in parted ways.
Yeah.
And I'm not talking about the clinical diagnosis of schizophrenias or any of those kind of things, but there is some truth to the idea that what we linguistically say around having parts or being compartmentalized does cause divisions in our lives, and sometimes they don't
Mhm.
cross over. And so, somebody may be looking like they're doing great in their business and they're a successful entrepreneur and they're making the money sort of thing, but at home it's dark and ugly,
Yeah.
right? Or maybe their own personal self-esteem. They may be kicking butt out there in the business field. They're making lots of money, but they personally have this like imposter syndrome kinds of stuff. Okay, I don't say that as a judgment. I say that because these are the real experiences of life and
Hmm.
awareness. I was told this one time, and it was so good. Awareness itself is transformational.
Mm.
If you can become aware
Mhm.
that you're splitting yourself and compartmentalizing yourself,
Wow.
or whatever these things are, if you become aware, now all of a sudden that awareness allows you to start thinking and perceiving things differently. And you have the potential now to actually do something about it, to change it, to integrate, to become more whole, sort of thing. You don't have to be a therapist for that. You've got a
Th-
Jesus who's long older than the world of psychology and psychiatry. It doesn't mean those things aren't useful because I would tell you all day long that they're super helpful. I see a counselor myself,
Yep.
right? Get the help where you can get it, sort of thing, right? We don't have to do this whole thing alone. And yet at the same time, it's just part of life, and we need to allow ourselves. Um, we have a responsibility to be good people, but we also need to allow ourselves to be human beings. Like stuff hits the fan, man. Sometimes it's
Hmm.
hard, right? And just because I'm a Christian doesn't mean everything's all going to be easy and sunshine and rainbows and that kind of stuff, right? But at the same time, it doesn't mean that it always has to be hard either.
Right. Yeah. Um, wow. That was a super big gold nugget, I feel, in the awareness portion.
Sure, sure.
And I think a lot of people maybe need to hear that is that um and kind of this is a good segue. We're going to talk about your expertise here in a minute. We've talked, I think
Okay.
you've unveiled some of it, but um having a coach or someone there can help
Mhm.
make you more aware. That's one of the
Mhm.
primary purposes I feel of a coach is to make you
For
aware of
sure,
where you're falling short, right? Because
for sure.
you're in a tunnel. You sometimes don't
Yeah,
see it.
yeah.
So
When you have a practitioner or coach in your life, a good one, I've been doing this a long time now, a good one is not only going to be somebody who's willing and able to see your potholes, but also someone who's willing to be and to be able to see and express your goodness. Where are
mm,
you winning? Where are you doing well?
mhm.
Right? Sometimes people don't want to see a counselor, a professional, or have a coach because I have to be accountable. They're going to tell me about all the crap, and nobody likes to be wrong. It's so funny. We human beings are funny because we want to look good and be right. Because we live in a world where we are made for greatness, but conditioned to lose. Right? Our conditioning that comes from
Mhm.
the world and from our enemies sort of thing conditions us to lose. Okay. But if a good practitioner, a good coach is somebody who's willing to hold the light up in front of you and say, you are the light. You're a light bearer and you're doing good in these areas. And my friend, these other areas, the pain that you have in your life right now is coming from these other things that aren't going so well or that you're not doing so well. So let's look at those. Let's look at them for the purpose of unloading them or taking care of them or whatever it might be. Get rid of the baggage sort of thing so that you can be freer. And that could mean personal growth, but that could also mean your business. Like, hey, friend, the reason that your income is spotty and you feel like it's this roller coaster thing and you're kind of starting to hate entrepreneurship is because you won't show up and have a regular time that you lead generate and market your business and have conversations. Have
Yeah.
conversations with people. I don't care if they're on the phone or if they're on Zoom or you go to a networking group, but unless you have I teach this to entrepreneurs all the time. You need to create, have, and upgrade conversations. And if you do that over and over and over again, there's a myriad of methods to do that, but that's all you got to do. I don't care if it's through online funnels or DMing people on social media or cold calling people or doing open houses or whatever it might be. You create, you have, and you upgrade conversations. And if you do that consistently, eventually you're going to find somebody who's going to say yes. But because you're not doing that right now, that's why you have the pain. And when you can have somebody who's willing to be able to tell you that, and then you're willing to be able to change it, then things can change.
Like mine's right there. I said relationship building. That's one of the things that I'm very good at, and that's what I tell my clients is that um, they have this fear of sales and marketing in general a lot of times when they engage with us. And it's if you
By the
just
way, all of us do to some extent.
yeah,
So let it go.
but a lot of it's a mindset of about what it is, as how they're positioning it.
Absolutely.
You're
Absolutely.
out there making friends, building relationships because you're offering value. I think it comes back to what you were saying about our own self-worth, right? How we see ourselves
Hmm.
plays into how we outreach to other people.
Yeah.
So it
See,
go ahead.
we got to be careful here because, and by the way, I get guilty of this at my own times in my own business, but that practice is a selfish practice.
Hmm.
You have a gifting, you have a skill set, you have a product that can make somebody else's life better. And when you're all thinking about yourself and how you're going to feel when you call somebody, you are not thinking of that other person that you can be helping. You're thinking about your own junk. How do I know this? Guilty of it, right? And so I spend my time and try to find practices and ways to be able to get myself to be able to do the kinds of things that are important to do. You mentioned it's about relationships. Well, here's the deal, friends. The conversation that I'm talking about, create, have, and upgrade conversations, the conversation is the relationship. Do you think about the relationships in your life that you're not having regular conversations with these people? What kind of relationship is it? It's usually cold. It's not really deep, that kind of thing, or whatever. And so now you're asking people to put money on the line in your relationship, but you're not staying in touch with them. You're not in conversation with them. The conversation is the relationship, friend. So just get good at having conversations. And when I say get good, just do what you already know how to do. You have conversations all day, every day. You just have a different content of that conversation. Woo. We're getting fired up
Yeah.
about business stuff right here, right now. Okay.
Yeah.
But I get passionate about this stuff because this piece solves a mass majority of people's problems in business.
Mhm.
Like if you had more clients than you can handle and you're making more money than you thought, all the other issues about HR or my broken printer, right, and all that kind of stuff is minimal, right? Those are high level problems,
Mhm.
right? So it solves a lot of those kinds of problems. All right, what does that have to do with all this other stuff we're talking about? Well, when I brought up the selfishness piece, it's like we are we are to be for others, and that's what our business is there for, is to be for others in some way. I don't care if you're a plumber, right?
Mhm.
Your business is for others. And so do they know about you? Do they know that you are offering this sort of thing and it can better their life? Oh, and by the way, you may show it to somebody and they'll go, that ain't for me. Stop thinking that's about you. That doesn't mean you're not good enough. That doesn't mean your product's not good enough. It just means that that person's either in a mood or they really don't need it, or it's not now, maybe next month, maybe next year, maybe next time. I spent a lot of time used to spend a lot of time putting some stuff out on social media. And I would lead generate as well. One gentleman I had talked to several times about business, he just wasn't ready to coach with me. Okay. All right. So that kind of sucks. I tried not to get weird about it, sort of thing, but I just kept doing my thing. And then one day he calls me from a local, it's like a pond where you get to do all sorts of like paddle boarding and there's a beach out there, kind of thing. So he's out there with his family with his in his shorts and that kind of thing. And he called me and says, okay, dude, I think it's time for me to coach with you and work with you. I just saw your video on blankety blank sort of thing, whatever. And it was because I kept having the conversation and then he was finally ready. All right. So it wasn't about me. It never was about me. It never was about whether I was good enough or that my content was great or that my product was good enough, that kind of thing. It just simply was that guy was in a place where he wasn't ready to want to do something different. Okay.
Yeah, yeah. Um, this also came to mind as well. Like I welcome no's now, um, because a lot of times I'd rather have the no than someone feign interest, right? And
Oh,
carry
all day
on the
long.
conversation. It serves them much better. It serves me much better. Um,
The worst answer you can get as an entrepreneur is maybe.
yeah.
And by the way, maybe sometimes comes in the word that somebody says, maybe, but a lot of the time it comes in some form of avoidance.
Mhm.
I need to think about it. Why don't you call me next month? I'm busy right now. All those kinds of things are some version of maybe. And it's the worst thing you can hear as an entrepreneur or salesperson, if you will. And if you're an entrepreneur and you don't think you're a salesperson, get over it. You are,
Yeah.
right? So, and I'm not trying to be rude or anything like that. It's just that's just the matter of the fact is nobody's going to sell it for you. You got to do the thing. All right. So allow yourself to go in with the purpose of I just need to know, yes, you're all in, you're excited, and I got to do my part to make it look exciting and that kind of thing
Mhm.
and fit for you. Or I need to know, no, this completely isn't for me, or I don't want it, or whatever. And I'm okay with either answer.
Yeah.
Some will, some won't. So what?
Yep. Yep.
Right?
Yep. Yeah. Awesome. You're getting so much stuff out of this interview. We're giving you a little sales coaching, a little lead gen coaching,
Right?
a lot about staying aligned with God. I love it. Now we're finally going to get into your expertise. We've been there, but we're going to dive a little bit deeper. So,
All right, let's do it.
you're known for being a catalyst for transformation. You kind of mentioned that at the top. Can you share a success story or two about how your coaching has helped someone?
Yeah, so this is interesting. A few months ago, okay, so my son got married in October. Okay, my oldest son, my firstborn, he got married in October. About that time, we were busy with life. I was doing business and I was working on my own health and fitness. And then I'm trying to help my son get married. And life was busy. And all of a sudden, I get this text out of the blue. And the text said, it was just the phone number. I didn't have a name or anything like that. And it said, I just wanted to reach out to you and let you know just how powerful my experience was in working with you. Because when we did that work about my beliefs around money, it's completely changed my game. And I need you to know I'm sending this text message from a training. She was taking her own certification training in NLP, which I had kind of been working with her on NLP and hypnosis, that kind of thing. And she says, and my business is doing better than ever before. And I'm happier than I've been in a long time. I was like, wow. Because we really only did two sessions around the money issue, like her beliefs around money and that kind of stuff, whatever, because she is a person of faith as well. And so we did some work on that sort of thing, but just out of the blue. And it took me a minute because I had to look up her phone number to find out who the heck it was. Right.
Wow.
And then of course I remember her being a client, of course. But that moment was telling for me because there's nothing more interesting and exciting to me than when people have betterness and goodness and shifting towards something better when I do some work with it. Like, why am I doing this if it's not making a difference? But to know that to have had an experience like that and that it made such a profound difference in her life, like it literally was pivotal, it's humbling and exciting at the same time. So
Yeah.
that's a recent example.
Can we sit here for a minute and talk about money beliefs?
Sure.
So, this is another thing. We talked about sales, and a lot of that revolves around money beliefs. But
Mm.
basically, can you just dive into maybe some of the limiting mindsets that people have around money and how and some practical things that they can do to shift that?
Yeah. Here's the thing about beliefs like this, and especially around money, is that, how do I say this? We consciously, if we were to ask, do you have issues with money? Do you have limiting beliefs around money? No. I like money. Money's fine. Yeah, I kind of thing. Whatever. Consciously. So what we have to understand first and foremost is that our beliefs don't sit at a conscious level. We're not generally consciously aware of our beliefs all of the time. Okay. We can bring them into our conscious awareness, but where they're stored is in our subconscious. Okay. The part of us that, by the way, is um, the part of us that determines what we believe, but also determines what actions we do or don't take. Okay. So why do I tell you that? Because A, you're not consciously aware of it. So sometimes there may be some limiting beliefs in there that you're not seeing or you're not noticing. Second piece that's going to be really important is, well, why is this stuff so difficult to get over? I mean, can I just, okay, I love money. And I used to hate money. Now I love money. Or I used to believe that God thinks money's bad and I should be a better Christian. No, 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 he didn't say that. He says the love of money
Hmm.
is the root of all evil, not money itself, right? And if you look through the Psalms where he talks a lot about how he's going to make people, riches and wealth and that kind of stuff come from, obedience and righteousness and all that stuff. Okay. Why is this so challenging? And people don't realize this is that beliefs travel in packs. If you have one particular belief that's semi-negative about money, there's going to be a handful of other beliefs that are circling around that support that belief. Okay. So if I have that, let's go back to that belief where I said, hey, money's the root of all evil. So I just accidentally took that interpretation, right? Well, now I've got a whole bunch of experiences that show other beliefs that will support that piece. So money's the root of all evil. Therefore, working hard is not a great idea. Investing in real estate or any sort of investments, I probably really don't need to do that because I'm a kingdom man and I'll have my riches in the kingdom kind of a thing, right? And do you see where I'm going with this? Is like there'll be multiple other supporting beliefs around our core beliefs. Okay? And so sometimes unwinding that stuff can be or can feel very difficult. And because these things reside in our subconscious memory, right? Um, it one of the things that is useful in doing work like neurolinguistics or even certain types of other therapies like Gestalt and those kinds of things is because they help us to be able to access the stuff that's there. Time techniques is a really good one. Access the stuff that's sitting there in the subconscious that we don't really have a conscious understanding of, and be able to reframe.
Hmm.
Right? Reframe simply means you're rewriting the chapter.
Hmm.
You're changing the meaning of something, not necessarily that it actually existed or happened. You're just changing your meaning, your interpretation of it, sort of thing. And that can help unwind things sometimes rather quickly, just like
Yeah.
this particular woman, right? That I was
Yeah.
talking about. So if you feel like it's frustrating and hard, sorry, I almost fell over right there. If you feel like it's frustrating and hard, it is. Okay. So give yourself a break, but it doesn't mean it's impossible. Just because you haven't done it or you don't know how doesn't mean that it can't happen. And it can't be simpler than you thought. Hope. And that's a whole nother podcast.
Yeah.
Like hope is foundational, my friend.
Hmm.
Like hope is what's required for us to even be able to move in the right direction. So anyway,
Yeah.
does that help?
Yes, I'm really glad we touched on that since this is the Profitable Christian Business Podcast and beliefs around money. Limit your profits, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
and
Yeah. Yeah.
there's all places in the Bible where God teaches you the guidelines on how to be rich, right? He teaches you. So why would he teach one thing and then say another, right?
Yeah. And why would he tell you that I want you to have a life abundant, but not allow you to have abundance financially?
Yeah.
Okay. Does that mean that people are bad or wrong for not wanting money or for having more, what's am I looking for? Conservative lifestyles financially? No. We all have our own internal values, things that we value. And some of us may be like, hey, I don't feel okay. So I'm not rich. I've got this average home and I've got one car instead of two, sort of thing. I'm living a great life and I'm happy and I love my God and the things are going well. All that can be true. Same thing can be true for somebody who's making $10 million a year, right? And so this is where we have to be careful to get attached to circumstances,
Mhm.
right? Because we all know that circumstances can change. That person who has the average home and one car could win the lottery tomorrow and God could bless them with that. And all of a sudden their life's different. That person who has $10 million a year could lose it all. Okay, this is really good. I saw this morning. So you said all the fires going on in LA right now, right?
Mhm.
Insane. It's just insane what's going on down there. And there's a lot of celebrities that have lost their homes. Mel Gibson was one of those people, and it's been really interesting because I watched him on a couple of podcasts. And one of the things he says that he said it's really personal, and he says it's really hard. I'm really going to miss that stuff. He says, but at the same time, there's like a relief to it. And he says, and I feel like God is unburdening me to prepare me for something new. And he's about ready to start filming his sequel to The Passion of the Christ.
Yeah.
right? And so your interpretation, your frame, and how you understand or make meaning of things matters in a really big way. And that's the same thing with money. The meaning in which you give something will show up in the way that you live.
Yeah. So many times things have to be, whether you do it or God does it, has to be taken away in order for you to be prepared for the next thing that God has for you.
Sometimes, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. So this is something that I wrote down and I posted and left hanging up that I can see on a regular basis. The fruit of your thoughts is the life that you live.
Mhm.
There's a really good metaphor in scripture about fruit, right? That we will know Christians by their fruit, by what they
Mhm.
produce, right? Same thing is true of your business, that kind of thing, but it is your thought life, right? If you're concerned about the fruit of what's going on in your life, what you're seeing, you need to go back to the base, which is the fruits, the roots, if you will. Right? The roots produce the fruits, that kind of thing.
Yeah. I just want to touch on one other thing in this general area, and that is the idea of being rich. Um, Rich is different to different people, right?
Sure,
Um,
sure.
so the person that has 10 million may want 50. He may not feel rich. He may feel like the person that has 50 million, or Elon Musk is rich, that he's not rich. But the same person that has that one car, the house, maybe all their needs are met, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And you just have a loving family, that is also rich.
Okay. This takes us back to, and we're going to take us back to foundations and practices, because when did we decide that being rich was um, desirable?
Mm.
Like, who told you that being rich, meaning financially well off, way beyond your needs, is something that's desirable? Because it's not for every single person, but yet our culture constantly says, are you making it? Are you doing good enough? Do you have lots of money? Do you have enough cars? Is it shiny enough? Right? Can you go get yourself some massages? Can you take vacations? That kind of stuff. And it's like, there's two pieces of this. Number one is that that's not for everybody. Not everybody wants that. But secondly, the people who do want it and don't have it is because they have some sort of belief. This all goes back to the roots, right? They
Mhm.
have some sort of underlying belief that's preventing them from taking the actions to have the riches,
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah.
whatever riches means to them.
Yeah. I'm going to go full circle back to the love of money is the root of all evil. Um, and I think that's where we got to be careful as Christians is to what are we is our focus on God? Is our focus on obtaining
Because they feel like they should or they're supposed to, or this is what the world is doing, therefore I'm not good enough if I'm not pursuing the same kind of things. All this happening at a subconscious level. So if you're pursuing something that is not a heck yes, that is not like a true value and passion for you, you're just not going to do the stuff. You'll find ways to
Mhm.
self-sabotage. Okay. So spend some time getting the absolute clarity of what it is that you're made for and what it is that you truly do
Mhm.
desire, because God wants to give us the desires of our hearts. God doesn't really care about giving us the desires of other people's hearts.
That's
Okay.
right.
So get clear on that. Okay. That's one piece that holds people back. Another piece is um, a lack of knowledge. Like when you don't know what you don't know. Okay. This is why learning and reading and coaching and those kind of things can be fruitful for you, because you start coming across things that you had no idea. If I want to have a successful business and I'm gonna run a UPS store. Look, I'm making this up right now. Okay. I'm gonna run a UPS store or whatever, but I don't really know you know, I don't even really know what the postal thing means. A lack of knowledge. If you don't know how, okay, you don't
Hmm.
know what you're doing, okay, that can cause some issues. Can be fixed. Okay. The third one is an unwillingness to do the activities that bring about the results for you to have your
Mm.
goal. I think it really boils down to those three and probably nothing more. You're either unclear about what you want or you're pursuing some sort of pseudo dream, right? You're shadow boxing,
Hmm.
right? So it's either that you don't have a desire or a vision, right? Without a vision, the people perish, right? That
Hmm.
comes straight out of the Old Testament, if you will. Okay. You don't know what you're doing or you don't know how to do it. Or thirdly, you're not willing to do the things that it takes to get there. There isn't any other, there isn't any other thing.
That's right.
With one exception. When I say you don't know what you're doing, that has to do with both strategy and skill. Okay.
Yeah.
You don't know the step-by-step process to do it, or you don't have the skill sets to actually make that happen. Okay. Every one of those can be fixed.
Yes. Couple things on that. I often tell clients they have to spend some time on their why, right? They have to sit like, don't just hurry through that. Like, okay,
Yeah. Yeah.
I just want this for these. I want to do this for these people. Okay,
Yeah.
go deeper with that because
Yeah.
it's what's going to help you. I always think about some of the richest people, the most successful people that we can point to. Donald Trump probably being one of them. Had his valleys, right? Um, and but he just his why was what kept propelling him forward.
Okay.
Some of
Can we hover on this for a second here?
yes, yeah,
This is a both a pet peeve and a rescue, meaning it's a pet peeve for me personally, but I'm offering a rescue around this.
hmm
This idea of having a why, for some reason, has really confused a lot of people because
okay,
it's a generalization in some terms.
hmm
And so sometimes people have called it like, are you working in your passion? Right.
hmm
And they get this belief that, well, if I'm working in my passion, then I'm always going to love everything I'm always doing. And my life is going to be grand
mm-mm,
and perfect and all that kind of stuff, whatever it is. And that's not what working in your passion is.
mm-mm, mm-mm,
It's your passion that pulls you through the potholes and the problems.
hmm
Okay. You have to earn the right to work your passion. Okay. Also, people got really confused about a why because they go really meta with this. I have to have my why figured out for my whole life. Why do I exist? Like this is something that philosophers for not tens, but for thousands of years have been deliberating, and religious people, right? Religion, philosophy, art have been deliberating over like, why do I exist? What's my purpose? Kind of thing. People, those are huge questions. Your why can be as simple as I want to lose 7 pounds in the next 6 months. That's my why for getting my butt up and hitting the gym in the morning, kind of thing, right? That
hmm
kind of thing. Okay. So don't complicate this why piece, right? And sometimes you may have multiple whys,
hmm
and that's okay. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And you might have them in certain categories of your life. Okay. So don't get yourself all convoluted around this whole why and go, ooh, it's the most important thing ever. No, it's just giving you a vision of what you want so that you can move in a direction. Because I guarantee you, if you have no vision, you are not going to move in a direction. You will not take actions.
Or you're gonna quit at this first sign of resistance.
Hello, right?
Yep,
Right? Which oftentimes, if people do quit, then you got to stop and ask yourself, did I really want that to begin with?
right.
Because sometimes they may not have. And if you still did want that or do want that, then you just got to start taking a look at it and go, okay, so now I just need to accept the fact that sometimes it's going to suck or things are going to be
hmm
hard or there's going to be
hmm
those kind of things. And it's not the end of the story. If people will realize that they are holding the pen to writing the chapters of their life,
mm
that the previous chapter, when life came crashing down and burning and all the stuff hit the fan, sort of a thing, it's not the end of the story. It's not the end of the novel. You are holding the pen, my friend. So what's the next chapter? What are you going to make it look like? Now that you know and you have experience from what has happened, what has gone well and what has really not gone well at all, what will you do next instead? What will you do anyway? Right? Write the story. Write the story. The next chapter is even better. If you ever read a book or watched a movie, it starts off and somebody's having a hard time, sort of thing. And sometimes they try something and it doesn't work, right? Or they screw it up or something like that. And then they try again, sort of thing. And then they're like, all right, right. How many Rocky movies have there been?
hmm
Right? The first movie, the very first Rocky movie, he did not win. Hello.
Right.
He fought Apollo Creed and he did not win. It wasn't the purpose of the story, right? What it was is he was facing his demons. He's facing his giants, if you will. Okay. Now, in the next movie, he still had to work his tail off and train and do all the hard stuff. And it didn't feel like it was going real well. And, and he's all that kind of stuff. And then, but at the end, he took the title. Oh, and then by the third movie, he had a bunch of people challenging his title. And he found out later on that his coach, right, had been carrying him, giving him easy fights. And now he's like, well, this doesn't feel real. And so he had to figure out how to man up a little bit and kind of take on the next challenge, which means I got to fight a real fighter, right? So why am I telling you that? Because this is the nature of story. And we all live in story. And the story is that sometimes hard things happen and we give it a shot and we go for it. And then it goes, wow, that wasn't what I thought it was going to be. That's not what I was hoping for. Imagine a movie ending right then and there. That wasn't what I was hoping for. That really sucks, sort of thing. And it's like, it's over. And you're like, why did I just pay $15 to see this? This is,
Yeah.
right? Because we know God has placed inside of us the understanding that this is not the whole story. This particular chapter is not the whole story, and there's more.
Yeah. A couple things on that is we should also be grateful in the failures, and that's hard to be a
Ooh,
lot of times because it is once again preparing us. We probably were meant to go through that because it is uh growing us, strengthening us for what is ahead.
yeah,
Uh
for the better thing, right?
yeah. And just pinpoint back to coaching. A lot of times you get a coach because they've already been through that trial and can help you avoid it. Um
Mm. Yeah, that's an interesting too, is either the coach has been there and gotten through it, or they have enough experience in training that they've helped people get through those similar things. Yeah, the whole idea of somebody only working with someone because they've done what they want to do is a misnomer.
mhm.
It's a misunderstanding. Could it be useful? Yes, but that person who's been there and been through that and overcome it doesn't mean they're a great coach or teacher.
Right.
Michael Jackson, regardless of whether you liked the guy or you didn't, was incredibly talented musically, but the guy could not read music to save his life.
Mm.
Okay, he could write stuff, and man, just if you understand music and music theory and all that, rhythm and all that kind of stuff, the guy was a freaking genius, but he couldn't write music at all, and he couldn't teach people how to do and be as good as he
Mm.
was. Okay, so just because somebody has done what you've done doesn't mean that they're the right person to lead you or guide you next. And there are plenty of people there, like myself. I've never done some of the things that I'm coaching my clients to do, but what I do understand is I know how to be able to understand models and processes and what we call patterns, and then help people be able to navigate those so that they work in the right direction for them. I got a guy I'm coaching right now, and I've been coaching him for 3 years now. He pays me $1,500 a month to talk to me once a week, right? And he was in the business of doing SBA loans, and he was making $300,000 a year, but he wanted to get into developing land and for like multi-unit projects, that kind of stuff, right? Apartment buildings and the whole thing. Right? And over the course of the last couple of years, we've shifted him to where now he has 5 projects. 2 of them have broken ground, and these are multi-million dollar projects. Like when these 5 projects wrap up, it'll be $1.5 billion in this sort of thing, right? I have never developed a property myself. I've coached real estate agents, right? I've coached businesses, but I understand how people work and how processes work, sort of thing, and so I can coach them in those particular ways. I'm not telling you that to go, "Ooh, Greg, you're amazing." I'm telling you that because you need to realize for yourself, whoever's listening, that the mountain of experience and potential that you're sitting on just simply needs to be unleashed. And some people are really good at helping you do that, regardless if they've done what you want to do or not.
Yeah, if I could put that into a little perspective, I'm just going to bring up a name that we already talked about, Tony Robbins. Tony
Yep.
Robbins has not, there's no possible way the amount of people that he's reached that he's done everything that all of these people have done.
President of the United States,
Right, right.
right? Yeah,
But he understands
absolutely.
exactly what you're saying, the systems and the processes and the frameworks that will get them to where they want to go.
Right. And externally, there's systems and processes and strategies and plans. Cool. If you have those, you're on the right track. Problem is, they're not enough. There's you, there's the
Mhm.
internals, there's your beliefs, and there's your values, and there's your identity and kind of things that can either get in the way or support you. So this is a both and scenario. This is existence of who you are and execution of what you do. You have to have both in order to get results, right? You may know stuff and have plans for
Mhm.
stuff, but you don't do stuff. Or you could do stuff and you're doing the thing, but there's no plan or strategy to it. Chances you getting where you want to go. It's like I can drive a car, and if I want to get to LA from here, and I just get in and start driving, and I have no plan or no strategy, or and I don't follow any map or anything like that, yeah, I'm going to end up somewhere, but it's probably not going to be LA,
Somewhere south, if you just head that
right?
direction.
Yeah, if I even knew where the direction of south
Yeah.
was, right? That kind of thing. Okay, and on the flip side, right, I can take an action, but I don't have a strategy or plan to follow. Then, but on the flip side, and I've been guilty of this, create strategies and plans and SOPs and processes and tools and all that kind of stuff. But I ain't making my calls. I'm not using my technology and my phone and my CRM to make the call and to have conversations with people. Therefore, I'm not making any money. I'm not following the plan because I get emotionally hijacked and I want to do the thing that feels good instead of the thing that actually gets me the result. Get that sign behind you that says you can have results or you can have excuses, right? But you can't have both,
Right.
right? So I call this the E squared principle. It's the relationship between your existence of who you are as a person and your execution. When you get those two things working together, you can dang near be unstoppable, right?
Yeah.
But if one of them is off or not there or junked up or something like that, now you're not as likely.
Yeah. I'm hesitant to go down this route. Maybe we talk about it for just an instance, but I'm battling Joe Rogan now. I'm at we're over
Come
like an
on,
hour and 22 minutes.
Joe's
So
got nothing on us.
um focus, because we talked about like the different things.
Yeah,
So where you apply your focus, we talk a lot about revenue generating activities. You can be building and building and building and never get anywhere because you're always building, you're never executing. Um, so if do you want to talk about that
I've
just for
done.
a minute?
Been there. I've been there. I thought it was interesting that your first word was focus.
Hmm.
This can harken back to what we talked about a little bit earlier, where there are so many things vying for your attention, right? We even have jokes about this stuff. We even created a language around it. People go like, "Oh, squirrel,
Hmm.
shiny things." Like we've come up with descriptive language to describe what happens when we get taken off of focus. And there is so much that's trying to vie for our focus. If you can get yourself, and you can get yourself to be consistent with your attention, your affection will follow.
Mm.
Ooh, that's good. You should write that down. If you can get yourself consistent with your attention, your affection will follow. What's important about having your affection? Well, if you have your attention on something, your affection is your emotions and your feelings, and every action you take comes from an emotional place, and we back up that action with logic. We don't logic, most of the time, we don't logically make decisions to do things. We're emotively move, right? Emoting means to move, to think, that kind of thing. That's what emotions do for us, sort of thing. But here's the deal: is if I'm watching the mailman, right, and he's going to deliver my mail, and then I'm also watching and smelling what they're cooking in the kitchen, sort of thing, while I'm also trying to lead generate and trying to get my freaking dog to get out from underneath my feet, sort of thing. My focus is divided. Okay, this does two things for us. Science has shown us that multitasking is really terrible for our brains. Like it's seriously bad for us, right? Become a serial tasker. Stay focused on this thing and then move to the next thing and then move to the next thing, sort of thing, right? So your focus is going to be massively important around this sort of thing. You cannot, okay, success at doing anything is going to require consistency, frequency, and recency. Okay. You can't do any of those things if your focus is off. You're never going to be consistent if you keep getting thrown off focus, right? Shiny thing, I got to go do this. Oh, hey, it's time for me to go get my massage. I'm being silly about it, but um, frequency is how often are you doing this sort of thing? Because I could lead generate once a year. Doesn't mean I'm going to stay in business, right? And then there's recency. How long ago? How long in the past did that happen? And when am I doing it again? Sort of thing, right? Those things are really fruitful. And if you can think in those contexts and you can get yourself to focus. Oh. Can we hover on this for just a minute more?
Yep. Yep.
All right. Here's the challenge with people when they're told they need to focus more. They're like, but you don't get it. My life is so busy and there's so many things. Okay, so who decided that you get to be that busy?
Mm.
Secondly, this is so mean to ourselves. Our misinterpretation of focus is that we've got to double down and we've got to force ourselves and I got right. We got to like white knuckle this sort of thing. That's not how focus works. If you're truly focused on something, you're actually in a much more relaxed state.
Mm.
Our parasympathetic nervous system is the part of us that gets engaged when we truly get into flow and focus. If we're puckered and tight, we have now entered our sympathetic nervous system, which is the one that's associated with stress, fight, or flight. How good are you going to be if you're puckered? Does that make sense? How can you get yourself to relax and get into the flow and those kind of things? And by the way, some of our practices, including um, our prayer life, meditation kinds of things, bring us into that parasympathetic state and help us to be able to kind of relax, refresh, renew, re-energize. Therefore, I do have the energy to go out and do something that's could be potentially more, I'm using the word stress loosely here, right? Just more active, if you will. And so our practices do matter, but I just really want people to understand that if you're pushing yourself to focus, you're doing it wrong.
Yeah.
You've got to allow focus. You don't force focus.
A couple things on this, and it's kind of conflicting views. If you follow like the Alex Hormozis of the world, it's wake up and grind, right? Just go to work. I don't think that's for everybody. There might be particular people that is for. I am of the side that if you have a good routine in the morning of getting yourself set up for success, that's going to make your day go so much better rather than just going ahead. To me, like a lot of people can just get started working right away and just get in the weeds immediately because they haven't properly set their day. So,
Yeah, sure.
what's
There's some interesting dynamics with that because I'm actually a fan of Alex Hormozy in
mhm,
terms of like his knowledge and his ability to explain the process of like making offers and getting these mechanisms. It's actually pretty cool. I don't subscribe to the philosophy of hustle and grind.
mhm, right?
Okay. Now, there's a couple of things about this piece. Sometimes the hustle and grind gets us in a place where we're getting all uptight and I'm not good enough unless I'm doing blank sort of thing, right? So our interpretation and our translation of that can get us into trouble. Okay. Does that mean we shouldn't hustle about or work hard on anything? No, not necessarily. But have you found the thing that's right for you? There's a third piece, and this is more of a kingdom perspective. And this has to do with what are you building and who you're building it for? People who do not have a connection with God, who are high performers, are trying to build a kingdom because they don't already belong to the kingdom. And if I don't belong to the kingdom, I've got to build something for myself. And yet it's the one thing that could crash and burn, and it's not going to be there when I die and all those kinds of things. So for me, it sometimes some of my struggle as an entrepreneur has been, why would I want to put so much energy and attention into building this business sort of thing when it's all going to go away someday anyway? And if I get my focus on building a machine, building a kingdom, building what do they call that? An empire, if you will. It becomes meaningless to me. And I won't take the actions. I'll be
Mhm.
completely unmotivated. I'm uninspired. But if my focus is that this is the human person in front of me, and God has created them and supplanted genius and beauty inside of them, and I get to be a part of their story and help them unleash the bad and access the good and be the best version of themselves as God has intended, that has meaning and purpose. And I'll do that all day long. So I often have to take the perspective of that as I apply it to my marketing principles, as I apply it to the amount of hours I put into my business, as I apply it to the how much money I charge people, right? If that becomes the filter or the lens from which I can see, for me, I'm now inspired and I'll do stuff. If it's just about building an empire, I'm like, not to mention when you're doing something like that, your comparison is evil. We're
Mhm.
comparing ourselves like, oh my gosh, Doug's got this podcast and he's got this thing called Profitable Christian Business. And look at what he's doing, man. He's interviewing all these people. And so now I'm comparing myself, going, wow, why don't I have a podcast? I don't want a podcast. That's why. I love being a guest on podcasts, but I don't necessarily at this point in my life want to run one. There's nothing wrong with that, right? And there's some people who in my space as coaches and influencers sort of thing where they've got multiple coaches working for them, or they're really great at building all these funnels. Like, you know what I do? I just find people and I do some one-on-ones with people, at least right for right now in my life. And I have a handful of clients, and I don't make hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, sort of thing, necessarily at this point, sort of thing. And more importantly, I just don't spend hours and hours of my day running a business. I make decent money and I grow it where I feel like there's something I want to pursue or a thing I want to buy or something like that. I'll grow it for that necessity. The rest of the time, I'm like, cool. What am I going to do today? Huh? I go for a hike and I get to hang out with my kids and I get it, and maybe I put in 20 hours this week if I can afford that. Doesn't mean like I have an excuse to not work. It just simply means what are your values and what are you building, but why are you building it?
Yeah, I'll give you that.
How's
Give
that
that
for
an amen.
focus?
Yeah, I want to give that an amen. Actually, um, let's um, let's let that be the last question because we have gone an hour and 30 now. But it
Look
is
at us.
so packed with value. Wow, it was
Okay.
amazing, Greg. I do want
Yeah.
to do this. Where can people find out more about you and obviously the immense amount of value that you can deliver? So,
Wow. Great question. If I'm a pretty simple guy. I'm willing to give you my phone number.
all right.
Okay, I'll do that. You can go to my website, which is a simple link tree sort of thing, and it's got some samples and some stuff I do for influence and persuasion and things like that. But there's also a link in there that if somebody wants to schedule some time with me to talk about coaching, right? In any of these particular topics that we've talked about, let's have a dialogue, right? Let's see if we're a good fit. I'm totally cool with that. Um, Also in that link, I think there's or in that my website, there's a link to my YouTube channel as well. Some of the content in there is a little bit older, meaning like I haven't been contributing to it for a while, because I'm focused on other things, but there's still some really good stuff in there. And if you feel like you have a business or a team or something like that that you want to inspire, I'll speak. Right? We can do this sort of thing with your team, sort of thing, right? That kind of thing. So I'm glad to come and speak and provide value that way. If I may, Doug, to kind of put a cap on this,
Mm-hmm.
you can kind of tell in the conversation that I get pretty passionate about some of these ideas and some of these topics. And sometimes I speak very directly, and we've covered so many different things. And like, well, who the heck's this Greg guy? Why should I listen to him? Listen, I just need you to know, whoever's watching and listening this, is that the reason that I am as passionate as I am is because I've had a lot of really good stuff in my life, and I've had a lot of really crazy hard. And I want more than anything for you to be able to win. I want for you to have a great experience of life. I want things to be well for you because I want them for myself and for the people that I love. And if I can help in any way, shape, or form, that's what this conversation was about. This is not about putting Greg on display. This is about like, how are we helping each other run the race? So that's what I just needed to
Awesome.
know. It needed people to know.
Awesome. Awesome. Well, we're going to put the link to your website below, and your phone number. We're going to put your phone number and the link to your website below. So Greg will be there to answer the phone if you have any questions about how we can help move you or your business forward. So
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for
awesome.
that. I appreciate that, Lon.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, thank you, Greg, once again. I might have to have you on for a third time. If we can go this long on the second time, I might have to have
anytime, man.
you
This is good. This is
on
good fun.
on for a third time. There's going to be so many great nuggets that come out in reels from this that I know everybody's going to enjoy. So, again,
Mm,
thank you. And until next time, entrepreneurs, keep moving forward.
that's right.
Thanks for checking out the Profitable Christian Business Podcast. Remember to like, subscribe, and share.